They call it the silent killer, i.e. domestic violence. What is this? Should they call it internal violence, domestic violence? What an interesting concept, wouldn't you say? Two people getting together, whether you're man or woman, man and man, woman and woman, it don't really matter. But herein lies the fine line, the common denominator that I like to talk about so much. Where did it all begin for the individual? The victim and the perpetrator. Unified makes a very, very potent bomb. Ignorance is usually one of the main ingredients. Lack of control usually is not too far behind it. But those of us, me included, have experienced, if you've had a relationship with another, some form of domestic violence, whether it be emotional, through the art of verbiage, or physical, through the art of hands-on, or the combo of both. Uncalled for. It's lack of control. But even those that understand what they're doing, I have found more people still taking a hold of the choice of still being the perpetrator, even though that they know why they're emotionally acting out towards the other. Because is it really the other significant person that they see? Is it that? Or is it their mother that they're mad at? Is it their father that they're mad at? Really? Because you haven't had enough history, shall I say, to create such a conditioned bruise that went untreated for you to cause yourself to be out of control, that results in what we define to be domestic violence. Does that make sense? At all? In one definition, they call it an action, or better said, a choice that an individual performs in the confounds of an ongoing relationship that produces physical harm, arouses fear, prevents their partner from doing what they wish to do. Why? Where did it all begin for the perpetrator? And am I so brave enough to go out on a limb and say that the victim also plays a role as the perpetrator disguised as an instigator, because prior to the current relationship that they're in, they were conditioned in being a victim, i.e., older person while they were a child, abusing them either emotionally, verbally, or physically when they were in their younger years. Is that safe to say? That the victim also plays the role of perpetrator? It's such an interesting concept that takes the lives of many, many people, that destroys families. It's a sad thing. I speak from experience because I've played both. The guilt, once I became aware, was no joke. to know that I cannot go back and change it. I can only make now and any future experience with another far greater than I ever did before, so that I can produce a different result. So today is about kind of shining light on the realities, because I've met so many women and even men who are in what we define to be abusive relationships that have screamed that they can't get out of it. They don't know how. Scream to me that they don't love it. They don't like it. And yes, I agree that it doesn't feel good. But see, I wouldn't be me if I didn't also allow myself to look at a different point of view and say, yes, speaking from experience, we do enjoy the abuse, because if we do not know anything other than abuse from the time we were little to the time that we are grown adults, so to speak, quote unquote, then I guess I have to say I know no better but to enjoy that. It's been depicted in movies. It's been written about in books and fiction and nonfiction and documentaries from our highest celebrities performing this thing called domestic violence to your unknown people that just live next door. So what are we going to do about it? We have an immense amount of resources out there. You have domestic violence hotlines that you can call right now in your own community. You have smartphones, computers, you have local libraries that you can go to on your own and research it emphatically and find a solution. There are people out there that will assist and support you that have lived it. And 9 times out of 10, any person in these areas of these hotlines, of these organizations, are former victims and or perpetrators of domestic violence. It's about control, from my perspective. Somebody robbed us of our ability to consciously make a choice, even in our most youngest years that we can consciously comprehend, as far back as we can go in our mind. Somebody ripped away that control. And even if you cannot remember it, your body instinctively, emotionally, psychologically performs actions that gravitate towards the highest imprint of that action, whether we call it abuse or otherwise, that makes us magnetically choose people that mimic that same performed action that we went through as a child. That's why I always say, go back to your childhood for everything, because it was there where the first seared imprints of life were made, good, bad, or otherwise. Now, for those of us that are privileged enough, just lucky enough to understand the difference between abuse and a world where you know the opposite of that, where you have seen families or the confounds of interpersonal relationships where there isn't that form of violence or abuse. Herein lies the fine line. If you are currently in a domestic violent situation called relationship, if you know the difference between them both, you've seen them both, and you still choose to stay in the relationship that causes physical harm, that causes mental anguish, that causes psychological disarray, everything that results in you not experiencing peace, compassion, love, joy, and all the fruits of the Spirit, so to speak. then we need to talk about that. Because that's a choice. Why choose it? Would it be safe to say that you love it if you're choosing to stay in a harmful, so to speak, relationship with another person? If you consciously are aware of two sides of the coin? If someone can on the outside look at your life and say, no, you've been shown. Those of you that have grown up in a so-called decent home environment where mom and dad, or let's just say there was a single parent home, but you can see from the outside that there was love and compassion and all those other things, and you had food on the table and your bills were paid and you had decent clothes to wear and you weren't really without. You didn't have boyfriends coming in, hurting you or abusing you. Your mom wasn't sifting through a multitude of men, or your dad wasn't sifting through a multitude of women. It wasn't unstable. And you still choose violence, well, then we need to dig deeper to see where the imprints of self-sabotage, self-infliction of harmful things were in your childhood. You see what I'm saying?